All right, here with Thomas Gilman, Oklahoma State. Just finished the Missouri duel. Before we get into everything, just your thoughts on the Cowboys' performance here.
Yeah, I thought we did really good. Drop one match at 141. Kind of last minute thing. Tegan kind of fell a little ill, and Coulter actually was at an open tournament yesterday. Wrestled, I think, 3 matches. Got a phone call. Asked if he wanted to wrestle, and he said yeah. So he defaulted out of the tournament, came here, got his weight down, and wrestled today. So I think that's pretty awesome. Having a guy like that that's just bought in and focused on the right things, and got a call and heartbeat away from the presidency, as they say, and stepped up there and wrestled really tough. You know, like I wasn't an easy guy to wrestle, so mitigated a lot of good things, wrestled hard, didn't quite get the W, but I mean, we don't really care about that. I mean, obviously we're competitive, we want to win, but you go out there and fight and show a lot of courage. That's all that matters at the end of the day.
Yeah. What was your first? This is your first official coaching job, but what was your first experience as a coach, and what do you remember about it?
That's kind of a tricky question. It's my first official coaching job, but kind of going through the recruiting process, you know, that's the big thing that's being used against us as well. You guys haven't coached at all. Well, I don't think that's really accurate. You know, we have Jimmy Kennedy on staff. He's coached at Northwestern, at Penn State. Pearsall, he's not in a coaching role, but he's been a coach. Tyler Caldwell's been here forever, you know, on the team and on staff. So there is experience there. And then you have me and Dave, who don't have any coaching experience. Well, Dave ran that kids club too for however many years. You know, that's not college coaching experience, but coaching's coaching. You know, I think it's probably harder to coach kids than it is college athletes. I was an RTC athlete starting in 2017 through, April of this year. That's essentially, I view that role as a liaison between the coaching staff and the athlete. You're not quite a full-time athlete, I wouldn't say. You're not quite full-time coach. You're somewhere in the middle there. And I remember going back all the way to high school, you know, kind of coaching, being in a coaching type role, mentor role for my teammates, because I was probably on the better end of all the teams I've been on. So it's just kind of helping bring those guys along to it was more selfish coaching. Like, I needed these guys to get better, to give me a better feel so I can elevate my level of wrestling. And then transitioning now, it's more of a selfless coaching. It's not so much what I can get out of the guys to help me improve and elevate my level, but how can I get them to improve their level and get them to where they want to be.
What does being a coach mean to you?
It means a lot. I kind of tell these guys, you know, here on the team and then guys I'm recruiting, you know, my job, you know, from the university down is to coach wrestling, but I take it much more serious than that. I think it's my job is to mentor young men, because we have plenty of great athletes in this nation, but what we're kind of lacking is good young men. And so if we have good athletes on the mat, but they're kind of dingbats in their social life, then we kind of failed them. So one, obviously my job from the university is to prepare these guys and do well on the mat. But for me, it's more of like a calling to develop young men, because at the end of the day, these guys are going to move on, maybe go into business, maybe they're going to go into coaching, whatever it might be. Just to give them a good foundation to jump off of.
For sure. You wrestled a week or so ago, and you had put out the post, not retired. How not retired are you, Thomas Gilman?
Here's the thing with not retired is I'm not actively competing, but I did not leave my shoes on the mat. First off, I think it's cheesy. Second off, you don't retire from the sport of wrestling. I mean, you go from competing to coaching. I mean, I'm still wrestling, you know, not every day, but a couple times a week. That's not retired. Yeah. I think it's a cliched thing to put on the internet, oh, I'm retired. Or I kind of find a little offense to people kind of talking for me. I never formally came out and said it's retired. One, I think it's cheesy, like I said. But I don't like people talking for me, so I'm just not retired. Does that mean I'm going to actively compete? I don't know. The story behind that match was it was kind of started as a joke. You know, they want an RTC guy to wrestle Ortega, and we don't have any RTC guys in town. They're all overseas competing, doing their jobs. So Tyler kind of threw my name in the mix, and they were like, oh, yeah, that'd be great. I'm like, oh, crap. Well, this is an opportunity, you know, to strap it back on and give these guys a little glimpse of my training mentality and getting ready for a match. And it was an awesome experience, just you know, helping the guys get ready and prepare them for these 2 tough matches at UNI and Iowa State, very hostile environment, good environments, and then also trying to manage, you know, somewhat getting myself ready. So it was a good experience.
Is there a chance you would ever compete for World or Olympic teams again?
There's definitely a chance. I mean, there's a fire there for sure. Does it need, or do I want it to be kindled? I don't know. Obviously didn't really end my career the way I maybe wanted to, but sometimes that's okay. I don't know. There's a lot going on. Coaching's a full-time job and a half. It's multiple jobs. You got the guys in here on a daily basis. You got recruiting. You're somewhat fundraising, dealing with, you know, administration, you know. So adding competing on top of that, I'd have to settle in a little bit more to coaching. It'd be a lot to ask of my wife, you know, because I mean, she put up with me since 2013 on, you know, competing and being very selfless herself. You know, to ask her to deal with me in a coaching role and an athlete again, that would be a lot. But we've had that conversation, and she'd be supportive of it. But I don't know what the future holds.
Yeah. Do you have, as you look back, and it sounds like the door's open, but it also, you know, it may never open again. You may decide not to wrestle. As you look back, is there a part of you that has, and maybe regret's too strong a word, but you look back and think, hey, maybe I should have went up at some point. The weight cut became such a thing for you.
Yeah.
Is there a time you wish, man, I probably should have went up after 21 or whatever it was?
Yeah, for sure. I had those conversations with Coach Cody at Penn State, who was my coach at the time, and Coach Calavita, and the suggestion from Coach Cal was we should go up and then bring it back down for the Olympic trials. And just the way the American system's set up, it kind of pigeonholes you a little bit. It's like, well, I got to win 2 matches to make a team. I might as well just do that and suffer the weight cut. If I had to do it again, I would probably go up for sure, and then try and bring it back down. Zane Rutherford, perfect example. He did it, and it paid off, kind of. That's not a stab at him. It just he didn't maybe get what he absolutely wanted, but he made the team. That's a huge accomplishment. It's just that weight cut for me it took years off my life. You know, I kind of joke about that, but 22, you saw it at Final X. 23, and 24 trials. I was able to mitigate some things, and I was just proud of myself to be able to compete close to my ability. But if I had to do it over again, definitely go up and just run through the bracket. You know, I did it in 17 and 21. You know, it's not like I didn't do it before, but you kind of get, I don't know if complacent's the word, or lazy, or just got to win 2 matches to make the team. You know, it's a tough decision to say, I'm going to go to the Open and win the Open, and then, you know, so there's a lot of variables there, but yeah.
Was it something with the weight, and when you make 57, was it, would you make the weight and have kind of no idea how your body was going to respond that given time, or would you know as you were descending, this is going to be really tough for me to wrestle?
It never really hit me until 23. Because in 23, I made the weight just fine at Pan Ams. I felt really good. Kind of Final X, there's some things looking back, and hindsight's always 20/20, that were kind of really off, but it never really hit me until like the warm-up of the day, and I was like, something just ain't clicking right. You know, I'd go through my routine, and I wasn't quite hitting my mark, so to speak. I was like, well, you're gonna have to get tough. You know, and I think the biggest lesson I learned in 23 was I made a career out of being tough, and I relied on my own will and desire, and God gave me a circumstance where I couldn't perform without something greater myself. And so it was kind of I would say it's less the weight cut, it was more of like a coming to Jesus moment. Like, hey, I'm giving you something, and you're gonna have to lean on me and ask me for strength and guidance and courage. Otherwise, you're not gonna get through this. And you know, I didn't get through it. I didn't pass his test. And so the biggest thing that I did in my whole career was making the adjustment from 23 to 24. And I cut the same pinnacle, let's say, where it was like I started to recognize, okay, things aren't really going the way they should be going in the weight cut. And I just remember laying in the locker room at Penn State during it was like second or third to last weight cut. And I was like, I've been here before, and I remember this test, so I'm gonna freaking pass this test. So I just remember laying there and praying and praying and praying, and asking God for some strength and guidance. And I remember opening my eyes, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is the way it should be. I don't feel good, but I feel at peace, and I can step on the mat tomorrow, and at least make something happen.
Yeah.
You know, so it was you know, I tell guys all the time, you know, weight cutting is part of the sport, and I think it's really healthy for men, because we don't really get to that psychological state unless we're really sucking some weight. And so I grew a lot in my personal life and my faith through that weight cut, because it takes you to places that you should get to, but you're never going to get to in our society, because we're everything's so easy. You know, I think you don't have to look too far back in any of our genealogies. You know, my grandmother grew up in Nuremberg, Germany during World War II. You know, she didn't have enough to eat. She didn't have shoes. You know, no heat. You know, the Allies are bombing her town. You know, and so she kind of went through some adversity that I think is, you know, healthy. Hesitant to maybe say that, but the weight cutting, I think it's an important thing for our athletes to go through. But there are ways to do it right. There are wrong ways to do it, like starving ourselves and not drinking water. And you can do it right. Now I'm kind of getting all sideways on it. But.
No. Thinking, I was just thinking about your path on the ride up. You go to Iowa. You commit to Iowa, and there's uncertainty there on your standing at Iowa. It's you and Corey Clark, and then you're there for a little bit. You have a great career. Spencer's there towards the end of your career. Uncertainty. You go to Penn State, where you said, "Hey, I can't remember if you said a guest or a foreigner or something like that while I'm there," and I don't forget that. Do you find yourself, you're kind of drawn to those sort of circumstances? It's just happenstance that you've been in there in that kind of situation?
I think maybe I am a little bit drawn to that. I think of it maybe in a biblical sense, like a wilderness. You know, why did God lead the Israelites through the wilderness for 40 years before entering the Promised Land? Well, there's a hardening phase. You know, and I think that entering a little bit of a wilderness, being uncomfortable, having to be a foreigner, having to fight for a spot, I think has always been important to me. I remember, every circumstance is different, right? You going into college, I remember it was kind of me and Clark both kind of coming up. You know, we grew up in Iowa, wrestled each other over 100 times, had to been.
Wow.
And he committed first, and I kind of got a little bent out of shape about it. But at the time, I was really studying a lot of the Russians, and I was like, well, heck, why are the Russians so good? Well, they have 3, 4, 5 guys at each weight that can go win the world at any given year. That's why they're so good. So if I'm going to be the best, not in the country, in the world, I need to be around the best guys in the world. And Corey Clark, possibly could be one of my best training partners. Turned out he was. So did I get the spot my freshman year? No, I didn't. Did it make me the person I am today? 100%. So there's a little bit of betting on myself. And did that bet pay off short term? No, it didn't. But long term, it definitely did. It made me, a couple-time All-American, which never got my goal of being national champion. But I don't think that was ever. I never wrote that goal down. So was it actually a goal? No, it wasn't. I don't think. But it helped propel him to 3-time All-American, national champ. So the Spencer thing is a little different. I think the imaging is Spencer comes in, he's vying for my spot. On the international level, I'm scared. I leave town. The things that were going on personally with me and the program were going on before Spencer even stepped on campus. So it's not a personal thing. I touched on in my interview at the trials. I have nothing against Spencer. I did a lot of work to get him to Iowa City. I wouldn't say recruit, but I did my best to make him feel at home. I remember standing up on Carver, when Ramos and Dennis were wrestling. I was like, hey, that's going to be me and you, but it's going to be different, because there's not going to be that animosity. And I believe that to this day. Could we wrestle in the trials this year? And I have nothing against the guy. He's freaking awesome wrestler. I think he's a good person. and he helped elevate my level too, because you have some young guy nipping at your heels. It was a lot of personal things. I was kind of growing into my own person, becoming my own self, and I need to change. I felt like I was getting stagnant, and sometimes stagnant doesn't mean that program wasn't doing good things for me. They for sure were. Were there some things that I disagree with? Yeah, of course. I just felt like I needed to change up the system a little bit, maybe get uncomfortable to take my craft to the next level. Because I was already world silver, made 2 teams, but I knew there was something more that I needed to get out of myself and my craft, and I just needed to change the scenery and a change of perspective, and Penn State kind of gave that to me. So, and going from Penn State to here, it was just opportunity that kind of fell in my lap. I don't get what I want at the trials. Then you're kind of panicking. What do I do now? Do I want to compete at the time? I'm like, no way. 57's done for sure. Do I even want to compete anymore? I'm just kind of beat up, broken a little bit mentally, emotionally, physically, and this Dave called me and it's like, hey, do you want to go down here? I was like, yeah, let's do it. Was that decision the right one? We'll see. I think that we got a really good thing going on here. And it's just a little bit of a wilderness. You're kind of in enemy territory. These people have taken a liking to me. I don't know why. They cheered against me for all these years. But
you had the cowboy hat right away.
Yeah.
That was a good start.
Yeah, that's a good story. So I won that hat at the 21 Olympic trials. And living in Pennsylvania, it's a little different culture than down here in the South. And so I'd wear it, out gardening or doing things with my chickens or whatever around the house. But I'd always take it off to run to Home Depot or something, because you kind of get strange looks up in the Northeast.
It's kind of a statement.
Cowboy hat, yeah. I'm not, believe it or not, I'm not really that flamboyant outside of the wrestling community. But then when we were getting on that jet to come down here, I got all excited. I tore it out of the closet and put it on, and I was like, looking in the mirror, I was like, is this, I asked my wife, is this a little flamboyant? And she's like, maybe, but if that's what you want to do, do it. I was like, all right, that's what I want to do. And so it was a good opportunity just to throw on a hat that I freaking won and bring it to a culture that appreciates it.
Yeah. A lot of ways I want to go there, but the Dayton RBY Thomas Gilman, there's some weird dynamics there. Roman's beating Dayton, you and Dayton back and forth. How has that been as you're, their coach, but also I'm sure an active training partner? How have you felt welcomed by Dayton? How has Roman been received here? Just how has that been?
It's an awesome dynamic. I mean, you have 3 of the top guys in the world training in the same room. I mean, that on the surface is you can't beat it. A lot of credit to Dayton. I come in, wasn't a couple weeks ago, we were standing across the mat from each other at the trials and the semifinals, and I come down here and I'm kind of taking the role as a coach. It takes a lot of humility from him to kind of subjugate himself in a way to kind of what I have to say. And so a lot of credit to him for having the humility to kind of listen, allow himself to be mentored by a guy that, wasn't long ago standing across the mat from him, and actually he's beaten me on multiple occasions. So it's not an easy thing to accept that. But he was awesome, very graceful. One of the first things I made a point to do was go up to him and shake his hand and get on the mat with him and just, because wrestling's the common language, right? So you get in the room and you just kind of roll around and it kind of breaks the ice. So getting that kind of elephant out of the room or awkwardness out of the way right away. And then obviously with Roman coming down, we ran it by Dayton, and there's no better person in the world to bring in than a guy that's had your number. Mm-hmm. He's never beaten Roman. So why not bring him in the room and let him elevate your level? Roman's helped me a lot in my career, just with his style, his fast twitch stuff and his grit. And so it's been just a good start anyways.
I thinking about when you left Iowa for Penn State, it stood out to me, and it seemed a little bit like you weren't just rooting for Penn State, but it felt like you were taking almost like some shots at Iowa online. Do you have any regrets or any wish that you did that differently?
No. I mean, here's the thing. you leave a program, you go to another program. I'm in the room with those guys every single day, helping mentor them, helping train them, helping them with their technique. Those are my guys, right? It's no different than leaving Penn State and coming here. I'm in the room with these guys day in and day out, helping mentor them. These are my guys now. I'm not hung up on, I've told people this, I'm not loyal to a program. I'm not loyal to Iowa. Yeah, it's my alma mater. I'm not loyal to Iowa. I'm loyal to morals, values, and principles and the soldiers that I have in my trenches at the moment. So yeah, I did take some shots at Iowa. Do I regret it? No way. No way. I was cheering for my team and got an opportunity to take a stab at my former team. Why not? People talk about it. Good. It's good for wrestling. Also, there's a little bit of overcompensation, maybe. You're a foreigner. You're a guest. So show them that you're supportive, not just in the room. Vocalize it publicly. So maybe there's a little bit of that going on, but there's no regret. They can shove it for all I care.
And now you're here at Oklahoma State. Tell me what you can. How was that conversation with Coach Sanderson when you're like, hey, I'm leaving, I'm headed to Oklahoma State? What was that like? How tough was that conversation?
It was just a weird, bad timing, I think. Just with, because we had Zane leaving for last chance qualifier with Coach Cody, and then I was supposed to be on that trip, and I committed to going on that trip, and then last minute I pulled Coach Cody aside. I was like, hey, I can't go on this trip. There's a lot of reasons why not. I just don't think I'm ready to do it. I'm not ready to make the weight again. Talking to my wife, it just didn't seem right, because my daughter was.
Were you going to qualify the weight if something happened?
Just like as a worst case scenario, if Spencer gets the flu or breaks his pinky or knee or whatever, and I got to be the guy to qualify the weight. It wasn't like none of that was going to happen, but Coach Bill wanted, because Nick went as a backup for Zane, and then I was supposed to go as a backup with Spencer. And it was nothing against Spencer, nothing against Team USA or Bill or anybody else. I was not in a good mental state to be doing that, and I just felt like my wife and my family has been so selfless. I needed to be home. Why take a week and a half trip over to Turkey for a 1 in a million chance that I have to step in when I can take some time and be selfish and be at home? And then when that trip was going on, all this started happening. So I was having a conversation with Coach Kale, and then wasn't sure how to go about it with Coach Cody, because I let him know ahead of time before the trip. I was like, hey, Dave talked to me about maybe going down to Oklahoma State. The answer is not yes, it's not no. I'm thinking about it and contemplating it, obviously. It's a great opportunity. But that wasn't the reason I didn't go on the trip. And so I had some conversation with Coach Kale. And then I wasn't sure how to go about it with Coach Cody, because he was overseas getting Zane ready, and then came down to decision time. I was like, all right, I'm going to Oklahoma State. I let Coach Kale know, and it's not an easy conversation, but I've had conversations leading up to, hey, I'm leaving. So it makes it not easier, but a little bit easier. It's not like blindsiding them. Maybe a little bit. I don't know how they feel about it, but I know Coach Cody was a little upset about it, and I was too, because I didn't feel like it was fair to him, because he was my guy, helped me out tremendously on and off the mat. So I felt like I maybe did him wrong a little bit. If I had to do it different, I would have just picked up the phone and called him. But he ended up calling me after, because I think I called Kale and then called Cody, and then Cody called me, and then. But we talked quite a few times after that and moved on. So that feels good. Leaving Penn State was different than Iowa, just because I feel like I don't know. It was just better. I think I still have, I see those guys, Penn State. It's like, hey, how's it going? How's your family? How's your wife? And it's just normal. How it should be, right? But it wasn't easy. it's never easy to leave a program that kind of took you in and helped you out on and off the mat.
Is that how you look back at your time at Penn State? Appreciation that you look back on those times fondly?
Oh yeah, I mean, so fondly. I mean, it changed my life. Just the people there, the culture. You know, I learned a lot. You know, obviously I learned a lot from Iowa, but I learned a lot from Penn State, and trying to apply that not only to my coaching career and my athletes, but to my own personal life. And so Penn State was nothing but good to me.
Yeah. Do you anticipate there will ever be a time where the bridges can be mended a little bit with you and Iowa? Particularly, you know, the leadership there and the coaches.
I hope so. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know where things went wrong, other than me leaving to go to a rival school and me maybe throwing some shade their way. But that's just business, and that's just showmanship, you know. I hope so. I mean, there have been a couple of things where I've attempted to throw an olive branch and it kind of got thrown back in my face. So that to me is frustrating. But I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, no, it's never going to be amended, or I don't want it to. Of course I want it to. You know, those guys, Tom and Terry, they mentored me when I was 17, 18 years old, all the way through when I left. You know, I modeled my entire life around those guys. You know, of course I want to see those bridges rebuilt, but will they? I hope so.
Yeah, me too. I do too. When David reached out to you about the job, did that take you off guard? Were you surprised? Is this something that you guys had talked about before? Hey, if I'm ever a coach, I'd love to have you on staff. Or were you totally like a little surprised by it? Which was it?
I feel like we've had conversations. I mean, I've had conversations with a lot of people over the years. Are you interested in coaching? And you know, at the time, it was like, no, not really. I'm actively competing. I see what college coaches go through and do. I just don't know if I want to subjugate my family to that. Can I manage it with my home life and my professional life? And so it maybe took a lot of people off guard when I took the job. It's like, well, you said you didn't want to coach. Like, well, I didn't say I didn't want to coach. I said I wasn't sure if I wanted to or not. But that's kind of a point in my life where, you know, when you're competition wrestling is very lucrative when you're winning. You know, you have sponsorships, you have medal earnings, you have all these things. So it can be lucrative, but when you're not winning, it's not very lucrative. Because if you look at RTC salary, it's not a lot. It's enough to live off of. It's a decent living, but when you have a wife and 2 kids and you have RTC salary and no winnings, you got to start reevaluating. Am I going to double down and make this team the next year, and then maybe get an endorsement and maybe get some medal money? That's where I was at in 23. You know, it's like, okay, well, things are tight now. We got to buckle down and make this team. If not, then we got to reevaluate kind of what we're doing as far as the job. And this presented itself, and I was like, and nothing's forever. You know, I'm not saying like, oh, I'm not planning on being here forever. I hope I'm here for a long time. But just because you take a job doesn't mean you're tied to it forever. So I don't think it really caught me off guard. I think it was a good opportunity, and I took it, and we'll run with it.
Why do you think David asked you?
I have no idea.
Really?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that I bring a certain mentality and level of intensity to the program, something that kind of levels out maybe him and Jimmy's approach. Because I was at Penn State for a while, and I did learn a lot there, but my roots are Iowa. And there's a different type of energy and excitement, enthusiasm. Not better, not worse, it's just different. I'm a little more vocal and flamboyant. I get fired up, and sometimes, you know, we help balance each other out. You know, sometimes, you know, we kind of need to elevate the room a little bit, and sometimes I need to shut my mouth and sit down for a minute. So I think it works, you know, just as we're able to manage things. And I think that I've got a good mind outside the sport. I like to read. I like to do philosophy and theology with these guys. I think it adds a little bit of texture to kind of what Coach Dave's saying. So I think there's a lot of things, but on the surface, I don't know know why you're asking me, but sure, let's do it.
Well, what are you reading right now?
Right now, well, I'm focused on the Bible in a year again. I tried to do it last year, but my goal this year is to really stay up to date with it, do my daily readings, and have a commentary Bible. So do like the couple chapters a day and then read the commentary to really continue to get a better grip on all the verses. So that's my main focus, and then I'm reading a book on Vikings.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So I got Hendrickson. You know, he's a Viking stock, son of Hendrick. You know, so I've been talking to him all year about, you know, his Viking heritage and how he can go out there and be a warrior. And so I picked up this book to kind of get a little bit better understanding of the Vikings and kind of continue to preach those ancestral links to him.
I really appreciate your time, Thomas. Well, last question, I'll let you go unless you have anything else. What is your absolute favorite part of coaching?
Oh, man. Probably just getting to know these kids. You know, they're all so different, so unique, and I've had a pretty interesting, diverse life, and I can pretty much level with any one of these guys, and just kind of getting to know them off the mat to see how they kind of tick and help them in their craft, and just to see things, you know, the way you're talking to them and preaching things and showing technique, and then seeing them go out and apply them, whether they do it correctly or they get the success or the failure. You know, just seeing them like having that trust in you and applying the things that you're telling them. I think that's the biggest thing. You know, these kids have really bought into what we're saying, and they're trying to apply these things on the mat, and I think that's the biggest blessing.
Right. Well, again, appreciate your time, Thomas. Do you have anything else for let you get back to your day?
Go Pokes.
Thanks, Thomas.